For folks who aren't familiar with NJOP, we're a nonprofit grassroots organization serving the Jersey Shore and regions in South Jersey. And we advocate for those who are impacted by Superstorm Sandy. I'm sorry, I'm just a little nervous. Oh gosh. It is just me and my family and all these cameras, the media. So, and the governor right behind me.
No, you're back.
You do. They have. They really have. There's hope now. There's finally hope. Oh my goodness. All right. So back to the remarks. Today is really pretty remarkable, obviously. It's remarkable for me, my husband, and over 1,000 other New Jerseyans who, just like us, are still not whole and still not home. And we're nearly 6.5 years after Superstorm Sandy. Every story is different. We all had different experiences. Sorry about this. Every story is different. In our case, our difficulties began almost immediately when we were drastically underpaid by our flood insurance. But while we did get into the reconstruction, rehabilitation, elevation, and mitigation program, that did give us a little hope, but it just was not sufficient. It was not enough money to rebuild our home. And recovery from Sandy wasn't the only thing that has made this one of the most difficult times in my life. I was in the ICU at Jersey Shore after needing dialysis following complications from a surgery about a year after Superstorm Sandy hit. And while I was in there, my husband had a near-fatal heart attack, ironically joining me in the hospital. It's very difficult to recover from a disaster, but especially to get through crises like that when you're trying to recover. This is completely off the mark, but I realized today was just a random day, which made today so great because usually we just bring out the people to celebrate Sandy on the anniversary. But my husband mentioned it this morning. Today was 5 years ago that he had that heart attack. So it really is an anniversary today. I don't know where he is because of all the lights. But today is very meaningful. Anyhow, I'm so sorry. I'm having this is very emotional for me, and I'm just going to go off my remarks, which I'm sorry if this is not protocol. I didn't know what the rules were. I think there's rules.
There are no rules.
All right. Well, this is it.
Happy hour at 11:30.
Thank goodness we elected you. No, but I just want to acknowledge Senator Menendez. I didn't know it at the time because it's very hard to recover from disaster. But when, 5 years out, when we were still in such a bind, is when I got involved with New Jersey Organizing Project, and I had no idea what had happened prior to me getting involved. And looking back, I can't believe the fight that they had to go through to get money to come to New Jersey to help people like me. So thank you. Really, there's been a lot of work that has come to make this happen, and thank you. When you were the candidate, we were standing right next to each other. You might remember me. It was dripping wet, and you were like, there was a lot. You wouldn't go to an event. You were bone dry. I was dripping wet, and you said, it's going to be okay. Elect me. It's going to be okay. A year later, you announced a couple of things that we were going to do. You announced supplemental funding to help people that needed the little bit of money that they needed to get back home, rental assistance to ensure people could survive while they were waiting their house to be rebuilt, and a freeze on clawbacks while people could get everything together to fix things. So thank you. You kept your commitments and we're working on it. So with that, It is truly my great honor, and I can't believe I'm just so casual about this, to introduce Governor Phil Murphy of the great state of New Jersey.
Thank you, thank you. You're good, you're good. Let's hear it one more time for Nancy. That was incredibly brave. Nancy, is your husband here?
He is somewhere.
Can you raise a hand? Where are you?
I don't even know where Tony is.
Okay, so if we see him, if you see him before we do, give him a hug for us.
There he is. He's not going to raise his hand. I don't know where he is.
Okay, Tony, wherever you are, we love you. So Nancy, thank you so much for your story, for your perseverance over these past 6.5 years, to you and Tony and your family, and to all of the folks still trying to get back on their feet here today. To the folks at the New Jersey Organizing Project who have done an extraordinary job. Good morning, everybody. It's great to be able to start the week, particularly given the extraordinary weather that they've arranged for us here this morning at Neptune's Shark River Municipal Marina. The harbor master is here. I want to thank him for hosting us. This marina was quite literally washed away by Superstorm Sandy, and it was rebuilt stronger and more resilient. And it exemplifies what we want for every community and every individual and every structure that was hit by Sandy. And today, we're not spiking the football yet. We won't be satisfied until the number gets down to 0 in terms of the folks who are back in their homes, right? But we are proud to announce that we're closer than ever to ensuring that that can happen. I'm incredibly pleased to be joined by Senator Bob Menendez, who's been a huge fighter on behalf of Sandy victims. Congressman and Chairman Frank Pallone is in the house. Frank, great to have you. Senator Vin Gopal is with us. Vin, thank you. And Kevin McGee to my right of the St. Bernard Project. I also want to recognize to my left, notice I said to my left, Serena. I didn't mean it that way. Assemblywoman Serena DiMezzo, who is here. Assemblywoman Joanne Downey. Assemblyman Eric Hoteling. Mayor Carol Rizzo, not just anyone else. Committeeman Nick Williams, and to the rest of the team here in Neptune Township, thank you for hosting us. We've also got from my office the tall guy in the corner, who many of you know, Dan Kelly, who's been involved in Sandy for a long time, and Sam Villavatine from the Department of Community Affairs, who you all know as well. So 5 months ago, we held a press conference in Union Beach, about 20 miles north of here, to outline steps our administration, and Nancy alluded to some of these, that our administration would begin pursuing to get the remaining families displaced by Superstorm Sandy back into their homes. That press conference, in fact, was on the anniversary. It was 6 years after Sandy. And 6 years is far too long for families to not have closure or for them to not be able to move forward. Over the past 6 months, our administration, and importantly, alongside of our federal partners, and none have stood taller than Senator Menendez and Congressman Pallone, and our other federal and community partners, that the team has worked hard together to put into place the new funding and relief mechanisms our Sandy survivors need to have closure. And today we'd like to give an update and some additional hope that the long recurring nightmares too many families have faced can finally come to an end. First, I am happy to announce that we have completed all of the required paperwork, federal approvals, and public hearings needed for us to be able to provide an additional $50 million in federal funds to homeowners struggling to finish rebuilding their Sandy-damaged homes. The $150,000 cap on grants that had been in place for the past 6.5 years, which is a financial barrier that had stopped too many folks from being able to return home, is now eliminated. Sam and Dan tell me that homeowners will soon be able to apply through the Department of Community Affairs for the funding they need to complete the rebuilding of their homes. And we're going to be with them every step of the way throughout this process to make it as easy and as stress-free as possible. No finger pointing, no blaming, just heads down, grinding it out. Our Department of Community Affairs, led by Lieutenant Governor Sheila Oliver, who sends her very best, has already conducted several outreach and information sessions in areas up and down the shore to inform struggling Sandy homeowners about the new funding and to get this process started. Of course, while rebuilding continues, families still need places to stay. To alleviate the burdens of both paying rent on a temporary home and a mortgage on the one being rebuilt, homeowners, and this is the second big announcement today, homeowners will now have access to an additional 19 months of federally funded rental assistance. The previous HUD-imposed 21-month rental assistance limit was already being reached by many families. Through a coordinated effort on the state and federal levels that was delayed, I have to say, by the unnecessary federal shutdown, we were finally able to obtain a federal waiver to allow families to receive another 19 months of federally funded retail assistance, or rental assistance rather, while their homes are being rebuilt. So it's a total now of 40 months, not 21 months. Had we not been successful in this effort, and you all know this better than I do, many already stressed families could have faced financial ruin by paying both a mortgage and rent while waiting for their primary residences to be reconstructed. For many New Jerseyans, Sandy is just a memory. But, and again, I don't have to tell this group, but for roughly 1,000 families still rebuilding through the state's programs, Superstorm Sandy never left. With this significant amount of new funding and rental assistance, we now have hope that all Sandy families will have the financial support they need to finish their rebuilding projects, to return home, and to truly make New Jersey whole again after the worst natural disaster in our state's history. Again, I thank Senator Menendez and Congressman Pallone for their continued and invaluable assistance and advocacy for our Sandy survivors, especially in getting federal approvals for our efforts, and I look forward to our continued partnership. Again, I want to thank the New Jersey Organizing Project, and the St. Bernard Project, among other community-based organizations, for their consistent advocacy. And most importantly, I thank the families. You have waited a long time for this news. I look forward to joining you in the coming months to see your dreams being rebuilt. It is now my honor and pleasure to introduce the senior senator from the great state of New Jersey and a champion for every step of the way for Sandy survivors, Senator Bob Menendez.
Well, good morning. It's a gorgeous day outside, and hopefully that sunlight is going to shed a little bit more sunlight on so many of our families that they can finally see the end of the road here. Let me thank Governor Murphy for his kind words, but above all, for being a true partner in this fight to make Sandy survivors whole. We've been told a lot of things. This governor told me, I want to do this, help me do this, and in fact, here we are today announcing it. Governor, thank you for your leadership. It makes a difference. To my dear friend, Chairman, not just Congressman now, Chairman Pallone, chairman of one of the most powerful committees in the House of Representatives that inures to the benefit of New Jersey, and was just a tireless champion from the day after the storm till this day. He's just an extraordinary public servant, and all those who have the shore are fortunate to have him. To all of the elected officials here, Senator Gopel, the Assembly people, and to an incredible citizen group. Sometimes we wonder in our lives and in our civic enterprise whether or not people can make a difference. I'll tell you, the New Jersey Organizing Project makes a huge difference, and it's their leadership that has been extraordinary. And that's you too, Nancy, yes. And I want to thank Nancy for sharing her story. And I understand the emotions that run through it. So we're very fortunate to have you here, and hopefully this will be the end of a long struggle. Everyone here today remembers the staggering damage left behind by Superstorm Sandy more than 6 years ago, the lives lost, the homes swept to sea, the flooded roads and downed power lines, the iconic boardwalks and marinas like right here at Shark River Hills washed away. From the moment those dark clouds parted, we New Jerseyans were under no illusions. We knew that the road to recovery would be long. We knew that rebuilding our homes and communities would be less of a sprint and more of a marathon. But what no one expected were all the hurdles thrown in Sandy victims along the way. Those in Washington who refused funding, my Republican colleagues, who I had to fight tooth and nail, and I said, someday your state will find yourselves in the same situation. I have never not voted in support of emergency relief for any American. There's a reason we call this country the United States of America. We don't leave anybody behind. But there were those who voted against us and put obstacle after obstacle. And so between that and those in Trenton who filmed mission accomplished commercials with taxpayer dollars, the mismanaged state programs that left families behind, the flood insurance claims unjustly denied. Well, this was never about fleeces or photo ops for me. For more than 6 years, I've been fighting to get the job done. That's why I stood up to those who tried to deny us funding, securing $60 billion to rebuild our region. That's why Senator Booker and I and Congressman Pallone teamed up to pass a law protecting families from skyrocketing flood insurance rates, saving homeowners some $50 million on premiums. That's why I stopped FEMA from shutting New Jerseyans out of the increased cost of compliance program, and why I fought for reforms to streamline the Christie administration's inefficient rebuilding programs. That's why I stood up to flood insurance companies that were lowballing Sandy survivors, spearheaded the investigation that uncovered all the fraud and abuse, and delivered another $260 million to homeowners in New Jersey previously denied claims. For more than 6 years now, I've refused to let these kind of hurdles knock New Jersey homeowners off their road to recovery. As I said the night that New Jerseyans re-elected me to the U.S. Senate, my fight will not be over until every Sandy victim's fight is over as well. And fortunately, I'm not fighting this fight alone. I've had groups like NJ operating together, evaluating and elevating Sandy victims' voices. Our stellar junior senator, Cory Booker, since he got to Washington, has been a tremendous advocate. The congressman, I'm especially glad to have Governor Phil Murphy in Trenton. What a difference it makes to have a partner in the governor's office who wants to listen and make things better rather than yell and cast blame. He's righting the wrongs of the past and working to make sure no one is left behind. Last October, we came together to announce plans to reallocate millions of dollars in federal disaster funds from the Community Development Block Grant into initiatives to help more Sandy victims complete construction on their homes. And today we're glad that after our urging on behalf of the congressional delegation, the Department of Housing and Urban Development gave us the green light to move forward. This combined $100 million in funding will help lessen the burden on Sandy victims still struggling to rebuild their homes, when rental assistance to help New Jerseyans trying to pay rent and a mortgage, as well as the elimination of the $150,000 cap on grants for homeowners to finish rebuilding, repairing, and elevating their homes. So the 1,200 or so New Jerseyans who remain in the state rebuilding program have been through hell and back again. Some were defrauded by their building contractor. Some had to spend tens of thousands of dollars fighting flood insurance companies in court. Some remained paralyzed by the fear of dreaded clawback letters. These Sandy survivors have faced many difficult obstacles. But at the end of the day, they all share the same dream of returning home and getting on with their lives. Their marathon is not yet over, but today I see the finish line on the horizon, and the day they can return is really With that, let me introduce an incredible colleague, tremendous champion on this and so many other issues, synonymous, his name is synonymous with the shore and the green wave, not the blue wave, the green wave, the environmental wave, Congressman Frank Pallone.
Thank you, Senator. Look, I just want to, if I could just say a few things briefly, because I don't want to repeat what's already been said, but I think the most obvious thing from today is that in the aftermath of Sandy, it's really an ongoing activity to try to get the funding, to try to bring people back to where they were, and to try to make sure that we do mitigation so we don't have the same thing happen again. And in that process, no one has been better than Senator Bob Menendez. From day one and today, he said, you know, we're going to be, he suggested this might be, you know, the end or something, but believe me, it won't be, because I know him, and he's going to be continuing to fight forever for everything that relates to the aftermath of Sandy and everything that relates to the shore, because that's what he's all about. Nobody's fought harder than you, and I don't care what anybody says. Yeah. And of course, the governor took the mantle at the state level, which is so important, as soon as he was elected, even before he was elected. So I want to thank the governor for what he's doing, particularly today. But the grassroots organization, the New Jersey Organizing Project, which I'm more familiar with, you're from St. Bernard's. I asked him if that was like the rescue dog coming to people's rescue. You know, what they provide is not only the grassroots activity in terms of making sure that we do what we have to do, but also telling us what doesn't work. Because, you know, we passed legislation. Senator Menendez talked about the $60 billion package for Sandy, which we fought so hard for, you know, me in the House, him in the Senate, Senator Booker as well. I mean, the bottom line is that, you know, we pass these things thinking that it's going to work, and then we find out that some of it works and some of it doesn't. So that's where, you know, Nancy and the rest of the people here today make a difference, because they tell us what else needs to be done in order for these things to work, and they also give us ideas for what we can do in the future. And if I can talk about the future, I'll mention the flood insurance program, right? Because we knew that the flood insurance program didn't work for a lot of people. And Senator Menendez and I are working on legislation. He has the bill in the Senate. And I just testified recently before for the Financial Services Committee, because we want to have a, you know, like a long-term flood insurance program, like 6 years. We want to make sure that there's a cap on the premiums that's like, you know, no more than 10%. It should be even less. We want to make sure that there's money for mitigation, you know, so that we can do things that won't, you know, that'll help us in the future. And we also want to do things in a larger sense with infrastructure. You know, one of the things that we're still working on, the senators and myself, are the Army Corps projects that were funded with this, right? So we're still working on Port Monmouth. Union Beach is going to start soon. We're hoping that we'll be able to do Highlands as well. And then, you know, we're hoping we're going to do an infrastructure bill this spring, and hopefully in May or June, that provides a lot of things that would help with address climate change, because ultimately part of the reason that these storms are becoming more fierce and more frequent is because of climate change. And we, you know, I'm not going to get into bad mouthing Trump and how he doesn't believe in climate change. I just said it, though. but the bottom line is there are infrastructure things that can be done that will address climate change, and that will make it so that, you know, hopefully we don't have as large a storm and we don't have the more severe situations. And that's something we're going to work on as well. But I just wanted to say today, I mean, what the governor announced today is really so important, because I know there are a lot of people in my district. You're not actually in my district today in Neptune. The mayor reminded me when I came. It was at the time of Sandy, but it's not now. Thank you, Mayor. But we did, the governor mentioned being in the Bayshore in Union Beach, and the Bayshore I represent, and that was very hard hit. And we know there are a lot of people there that are part of this 1,000 that have not been able to get back in their homes, and what's being done with this $50 million that the governor mentioned, I think will help a lot, particularly the 150 cap, because we knew the 150 didn't work, and the rental assistance, because they have to stay someplace. So, you know, this is an example where the governor is reprogramming what is federal dollars, but in a way that is going to make a difference, because we heard what Nancy and the other grassroots people said, and we're going to continue to hear what they say, because that's the only way we're going to make these accomplish the things that really make a difference, like what you're doing today, Governor. So thank you. Thank you all. I don't even know who wants to.
Thank you, Congressman. In his chairman capacity, I think you got to take a train, right? Okay. Thank you for being here. You know, one of the in my frequent discussions with the governor of Puerto Rico, and by the way, New Jersey, by the way, the president's watching Puerto Ricans or Americans. I just want to get that off my chest. But to Senator Menendez's point, it's a great example of the New Jersey delegation standing up on their behalf, and they're living the same nightmare that so many of you have lived here, indeed in bigger numbers. My honor to bring up an advocate for many, many years on behalf of Sandy victims, State Senator Vin Gopal.
Thank you, Governor. For many of us, we remember, for those in Monmouth and Ocean and across New Jersey, the long gasoline lines, the food shortages, folks, emergency responders, neighbors, friends, people like our business administrator here, Vito, his team, and towns across, up and down New Jersey who came together to help their neighbors. And what was unfortunate we saw for the last several years, we saw a lot of photos, but we never saw actually anything happen. And today we're seeing actual public policy. Thanks to the leadership of two individuals, Senator Menendez and Governor Murphy, they could have very easily said this was 7 years ago. That's not what they did. This was important to their constituents. This was important to the heart of New Jersey and what we are. And this is not an anniversary of any kind, except that they didn't give up until this got done. And that takes an extraordinary amount of leadership. It's not for a campaign commercial. It's not for any specific time. It's easy to give somebody a hug, and everybody needs a hug once in a while. But this is a lot different today. The leadership shown by Governor Murphy and his team and Senator Menendez shows that you have individuals that will not rest until something gets done. So, Governor and Senator, thank you for all that you've done. And I want to give special recognition to my running mate, Assemblyman Hotaling. He was the mayor of Neptune during Sandy, and he did an incredible job with the town at that time. So we're also working on a very important foreclosure legislation that we're working with the governor's office. There's still more to do, but today is a very big day for so many New Jerseyans. God bless you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. And thank you for your leadership and for your very kind words. Our last speaker today, we'll take a couple of questions after that from the press, is representing NJSBP, which is a New Jersey St. Bernard project. And that project actually grew, and Kevin and I were just having a sidebar initially out of Katrina. And it is something now, an organization that has been there for victims of other disasters like Sandy and morphed far from its initial mission. And so it's with my honor to bring up the guy who runs it for New Jersey, Kevin McGee.
Thank you, Governor Murphy. I'd like to thank the Department of Community Affairs for inviting me to be here today. I'd like to thank our partner, the Affordable Housing Alliance, our friends at NJOP and at IEM. My name is Kevin McGee. I'm the director of SBP New Jersey. SBP began in New Orleans in 2006, shortly after the devastation of Hurricane Katrina, to address the long-term rebuilding needs of that community. SBP began in New Jersey, the same effort shortly after the 2012 storm. SBP is powered by AmeriCorps in the form of men and women from all over the country, helping to coordinate local subcontractors and thousands of volunteers from all over the world to help us to rebuild for hundreds of families up and down the Jersey Shore. AmeriCorps is a powerful force multiplier, and it is in large part the reason SBP is here today as the final nonprofit rebuilding group focused on Sandy survivors. The ways in which families can become ensnared in a recovery are varied, they're complex, and they don't easily lend themselves to a simple slogan. But make no mistake that what is at stake is the safety and the security of our neighbors here in New Jersey. Had I not been working in this recovery for the better part of the past decade, like many New Jerseyans, I too would be mostly unaware of the silent recovery that is taking place up and down the Jersey Shore. Were you to take a detour off of Ocean Avenue, sprinkled in neighborhoods up and down the coast, you will find homes that are elevated onto temporary cribbing, projects that have been abandoned, homes that are falling apart. You may see homes that are well maintained from the outside, but were you to peer into the windows, you'll find walls that are gutted to the studs and sitting lifeless. Governor Murphy recognized this important issue that was facing the state and made it part of his campaign to finish the job. The supplemental fund is a realization of that promise. Today, SBP is working with over 80 families, many of whom were not only impacted by Superstorm Sandy, but also by contractor fraud or negligence, and simply don't have the funds to return home today. The supplemental fund is going to make it possible for us to return the safety, the security, the comfort, and the predictability that we all know as home. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Kevin. Incredibly powerful. Tony's in the house. Tony, great to have you here, man. Please take this the right way. I don't know what you looked like 5 years ago today, but you look great today. God bless you. Good to see you. We'll take a couple of questions from the press. Michael, how are you? Right in the front row.
I'm good. I got a prime seat.
1A. 1A.
The dean's chair.
Yeah, correct.
The supplemental funding, does that come from FEMA?
Comes from HUD. All of it from HUD, right?
From HUD.
This guy has got the answer.
And a couple other points of clarification. I think Senator Menendez used the term, the number 1,200 people, and you're using the number 1,000?
Yeah.
What?
1,000.
1,000? So we got it down. And that's in the state program. That's inside, those are the folks we know.
In your prepared remarks, you ended your prepared remarks by calling Sandy the worst blank in state history. What was the worst?
Natural disaster?
Natural disaster.
Yeah.
And you know, or does your staff know how many people died as a result of?
I do not know. Bob, do you know?
Zero in Monmouth.
Yeah.
Zero.
Zero in Monmouth County. I don't know, of course.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. Brad?
Christie had some not nice things to say about you yesterday. Did you see that, and what was your reaction?
I didn't. I read an article about it. I view it as validation that we're doing a good job. That's all. Yeah.
Last week, New York passed the legislation to ban plastic bags. There's been some talk that
Yep.
New Jersey is lagging behind.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts?
We are lagging behind, and I hope we can get something together. There was something that came across my bow last year, and even the people who supported it asked me not to sign it. So that's I'm not sure I understand all the pieces of that, but we are lagging. Yeah, I wouldn't comment on specifically what we should be doing, but we got to do something. There's no question about it. Please.
Should Judge John Russo?
I still don't have an answer for your question last week, by the way.
I'm glad to know that, but should Superior Court Judge John Russo resign, do you think?
Listen, the courts are, as they should be, independently administered. So I have to respect that. But I found what he said was completely abhorrent, completely out of line.
Governor, I have actually questions for both of you, Senator, as well.
Please.
Senator, just your reaction to Homeland Security Secretary Kirstjen Nielsen resigning, as well as Nick Mulvaney saying that Democrats would never see President Trump's tax returns. And Governor, your reaction to last night's New Jersey Transit fiasco, for lack of a better word, and people coming back from WrestleMania waiting for hours. And do you think it's a testament to the fact that the rail still doesn't have enough capacity, and now that we're looking toward potential crises with, congestion pricing and gateway?
Yep. How many more questions do you have? Okay. Do you have a PowerPoint presentation? I'll start with the last one and give you. First of all, I was at WrestleMania last night. I did not perform, but I was there, and I was there for the first hour and a half or so, and it was a huge success, which was great. NJ Transit, I believe, said something that is accurate in the sense that it went a lot later than they were told it was going to go. They didn't get notice until very late, and 3 of their crews timed out. So instead of having 6 trains, they had 3, I believe. But I'd make 2 other comments. Number 1, remind everybody of the mess we inherited, and we're still digging out from it. And last night's a good example of that, because we, among other things, didn't hire engineers or had too few classes or furloughed them, so we've got too few degrees of freedom. But at the end of the day, if folks are frustrated, they ought to be. I would have been crazed if I were standing on that. And by the way, I'm told they weren't communicated with. They weren't told what was going on. And it's completely, utterly, dog ate my homework, unacceptable, period. With that, over to the easy topics of Homeland Security and tax returns.
Can I talk about WrestleMania instead? I mean,
you did perform.
Yeah. So look, what can be said about a president who doesn't believe that the Secretary of Homeland Security, who divided families, children from their mothers and put them in cages, is not strong enough on the question of border security. The problem with the president, he doesn't believe in the rule of law. There's some things that cannot be done, even if you are president. No one is above the law, including the president. And so at the end of the day, the fact that I'm not going to share a tear for Secretary Nielsen. I thought that she did a horrible job as the secretary, but not for the same reasons as the president did, number one. And number two is that, this is another example of the president believing that he is above the rule of law and testing the nature of our Constitution and our system of government, which goes to your second question. It is very clear, written in statute, that the chairman of the Ways and Means Committee and or the chairman of the Senate Finance Committee, of which I sit on, can ask for the tax returns of any citizen. And the IRS shall, not may, shall provide them upon request. So the bottom line is I expect the IRS commissioner to comply with the law. I expect, therefore, if the president wants to intercede, it will be another example of his willingness to, in essence, violate the confines of the rule of law. But I believe that the chairman will prevail and he will have access to them at the end of the day.
Thank you. I'll come back to you. Folks who haven't asked yet, please.
Here in Neptune, not too far from here, we had a tragedy. A couple, young 18-year-old, 19-year-old, they killed their baby. They had a baby, the daughter, the young girl killed the baby. We wanted to ask you about the safe haven law, just a reminder to people, if they get in that situation, what should they do and what the state has set up for people that find themselves.
Listen, first of all, I read the same stuff that you have read, and it's awful and tragic. I've got no insight into the particular situation. I'm not sure I've got a crisp answer for you. I'll come back to you if I can. Is that all right for that? Please.
May we go back to WrestleMania for a moment?
Yes. Well, if we have to.
How long will it take NJT to function in a way that it can make a rapid response, and what are you doing?
So what we're doing, among other things, as it relates to last night, one of the fixes was we need more crews. And as I mentioned, the engineering pool of engineers was allowed to dwindle over the prior administration to a point where there's virtually almost no degrees of freedom. We currently have 6 engineering classes in training. 4 of them will graduate this year. If I had to predict, I've said this before, so I'm not making news here, my guess is it's going to be another challenging summer because not surprisingly in New Jersey, when people take vacations, it's typically when the kids are out of school and the weather's warm. And that includes engineers, and they have a right to do that. But the degrees of freedom are thin. Secondly, communication. I'm speaking to the executive director right after I leave here, and the communication was completely and utterly unacceptable. That's completely within our ability to control. But the bigger picture is, meeting safety deadlines. It is the right management. The state is funding it finally in a serious way. We are hiring the engineers and bus operators. Slowly but surely, this is getting to the right place. But events like last night show that we're not there yet. Please.
Governor, getting back to why we're here, talking about Sandy victims who may have been victims of contractor fraud, who might feel they're eligible for some of this money. What is your advice for families that are still going through the struggle that haven't reached out as part of that 1,000?
So what's the place, Sam or Dan? Where should they go?
We're going to reach out to everybody. If you haven't heard from us, we will make contact. We assure everyone participating in the programs. We've gone up and down the shore in 5 different communities holding outreach sessions. And we will confirm that everybody has the ability to apply for the supplemental fund come time that we do make it available.
And contractor fraud is a coordinated issue with the Attorney General's office and DCA, so there's coordination there with Consumer Affairs to give homeowners the knowledge they need when they hire.
We'll do a couple more, please, sir.
Governor, in terms of NJ Transit, again, this is a repeat of what happened after the Super Bowl.
You bet.
How can riders feel confident in safety if riders are left abandoned?
Yeah, I wasn't there for the Super Bowl, but I made the same comment to my team this morning. And WrestleMania, by the way, is the Super Bowl of professional wrestling. And it's unacceptable, period. We're fixing it, but we're going to learn from this, and I'll be damned if it happens again. Michael, we'll close you out.
Governor, you've gotten a fair amount of political mileage out of increasing paid family leave, and the TDI, Temporary Disability Insurance Fund, is going to pay out more. Yesterday, the Star Ledger did an article that was a little eye-opening in pointing out that it's going to cost people in terms of additional payroll deductions to the tune of maybe $300 or so for the two programs. Should people have known that before yesterday?
First of all, I think we have, Michael, at every step of the way, been very explicit about how these things are getting paid for. And I didn't see the $300 number. That surprises me. But these are programs, the great news, that are spread across thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people. So the amount, whether it's for whatever these programs, is quite small. I'm not making light of any payments, by the way, but they're quite small overall. I think if you look at what we're doing as a package, so minimum wage, earned sick leave, equal pay, the independent retirement fund that's going to get set up for companies that don't provide you with retirement plans. What else would be on that list if I didn't say paid family leave? That's all directed. That's not just because we're nice people. That's directed at worker morale and productivity. And so I expect that we're going to see a much stronger, healthier, more secure workforce.
John Bramnick, the Republican Assembly leader, was on NJTV this weekend saying we're now up to 22 taxes and fees that Murphy has hiked. What do you say to that?
I say just what I said a minute ago. We now will have, I believe, the most productive workforce in the country. The middle class was devastated, ravaged, hollowed out in the last administration. We are rebuilding the middle class. Our investments in public education are historic. Our investments in NJ Transit are historic. Healthcare is cheaper this year than it was last in New Jersey. Property taxes last year went up for their lowest increase on record. That's in ever. I want to see them coming down, but those are not insignificant points. I want to thank Senator Bob Menendez. I want to thank the community activist organizations, the Senator Gopal, the representatives elected. Thank you for hosting us, Mayor. Thank you all for coming. Be well, everybody.
Thanks, both of those points.
Serena,
take care.